evening, dear Medyascope viewers. Welcome to This Week in Turkey. This evening, our guest will be freelance journalist Esra Aygın, and we'll be talking about the presidential elections in Northern Cyprus, which resulted with the Prime Minister and the National Unity Party leader Ersin Tatar being elected as the president of the country. The dynamic ties between President Erdogan and Ersin Tatar may impact the inter-island talks as well as the negotiations in the Eastern Mediterranean in the days to come.
The right-wing nationalist Ersin Tatar took almost 52% of the votes on October 18 election runoff, in which the voter turnout was 63%. His rival for presidency was the Social Democrat incumbent president Mustafa Akinci. Akinci's relations with Ankara had been strained for supporting a united federal Cypriot state. Tatar, on the other hand, favors a two-state solution for the island's ethnic split since the 1974 Turkish invasion. The north was occupied by Turkey in reaction to a coup that aimed to annex Cyprus to Greece. As Turkey is the only country to recognize Northern Cyprus as an independent state, Tatar thanked Erdogan in his victory speech with the following words: "They will never tear the ties between us and Turkey. With the approval we received, it is our people's preference in all disputes to claim our own state, claim our own land, and claim the guarantorship of Turkey." President Erdogan congratulated Tatar's victory through Twitter and said Turkey would make all necessary efforts to protect the rights of Turkish Cypriots. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu expressed his congratulatory message through reference to the Eastern Mediterranean and tweeted the following: "We will protect the legitimate rights and interests in the Eastern Mediterranean all together." Regarding the overall role that Turkey plays on the elections, Ömer Taşpınar shared his views to Medyascope viewers. The international media received this result as a surprise, because the current world interest regarding the situation in Cyprus is the possibility of unification. On one hand, there is an Ankara-backed candidate that supports a two-state solution. On the other hand, there is a candidate that can still speak out for resolution and unification. In contrast to AKP government's current siding with the nationalists, during the 2004 referendum, they had supported Mehmet Ali Talat, who was in favor of unification of the island. Back then, the AKP government sought good ties with the European Union and the West. Today, the AKP government is in dispute with the West regarding this topic and the Eastern Mediterranean. This is a result that confirms the aggressive image that the global media has created on Turkey.
The European Union was also among those that made a statement regarding the election results in Northern Cyprus. The Commissioner of Cohesion and Reforms, Elisa Ferreira, and the EU High Representative, Josep Borrell, said in a joint statement that now that the Turkish Cypriots have chosen Tatar as their new leader, what awaits us is to enter an inclusive and constructive process that aims for settlement and unification.
Good evening, Esra. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you.
So prior to the election results in your blog, you have quoted journalist Sami Özuslu, who had stated that on the one hand, we have submission to Ankara, referring to Ersin Tatar, and on the other hand, we have a dignified relations with Turkey, referring to Mustafa Akinci if he were to win the election. So we will talk about Turkey's intervention in general and the mindset of the population prior to the elections in a bit, but in light of this assessment, how do you evaluate the victory of Ersin Tatar? How have the results been received?
Of course, starting with the quote, indeed, we had on the one hand a candidate who had shown that he was willing to do whatever he is told to do by Ankara, who was not willing to stand up to Ankara. And on the other hand, we had Mustafa Akinci, who time and again opposed to Ankara, stood up to Ankara and showed that the will is should be with Turkish Cypriots. The Turkish Cypriots should have their own free will in the northern part of Cyprus. Unfortunately, we lost Mr. Akinci, and what was victorious in these elections was the idea or the acceptance of submission to Ankara.
Yes, I mean, throughout this election period, there have been some serious accusations, as a matter of fact, of the intervention of Ankara in favor of Tatar. As a matter of fact, Akinci even made a statement shortly before the first round relating to the fact that he had received death threats from Turkish officials. So was this intervention, I guess, strong enough to sway election results in favor of Tatar? Considering the mindset of the population, for example, prior to the elections, do these results reflect the will of the people?
I think the interventions were the thing that determined the result of the elections. We, as you said, have had death threats. We have had Turkish officials from a number of parties in Turkey visiting villages, talking to the district officers, the mayors, promising them support, aid, in certain cases, you know, pressurizing people in the rural areas and telling them, you know, we don't want to see Akinci coming out of the ballot boxes in this village. And, you know, Cyprus is a very small place. North Cyprus is even smaller. And imagine the villages. When you have 100 votes in a certain place, and you know Akinci comes out of it, they would know who voted against Akinci. So it's against Ersin Tatar and for Akinci. So it is very easy actually to scare people, especially in those rural areas. In those rural areas, the population is predominantly made up of people who have come to settle to Cyprus from Turkey. They are usually low-income families, and they're very open to interference. They're very open to the influence of Ankara. So I think Ankara played very wisely. They did not bother with cities, big cities. And when you look at the distribution of votes, you can see that Akinci actually won in the cities, in Nicosia, in Kyrenia, in Morphu, but he lost in the rural areas where most of the interference took place. Face to face, one-on-one, by visiting them door to door.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, how has Turkey's position in the past, I guess, influenced elections? I mean, I know this time around, many have suggested that this time around was an unprecedented type of intervention. So, they've suggested that this is related to Turkey's internal problems, that Erdogan needs a win of some sort. Would you agree? How can we assess, I guess, this time around compared to previous relations in this regard?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Turkey has always had a certain amount of influence in elections. It was never this open and this intense. We can say that this time they felt no need to hide. It was done very openly. It was done in front of the eyes of everyone. And it was done very intensively. Coming to why Ankara, intervened so much against Akinci, I would like to actually argue that it was more personal. Maybe, yes, there are some internal policy considerations there, but it was also very personal. The relations between Akinci and Erdogan had deteriorated to such an extent, and Akinci had opposed and stood up to and refused Erdogan's will to such an extent that I think it had almost become like an issue of honor. Erdogan saw Akinci's power, presidency, leadership as an insult to himself personally. They had a number of disagreements, and very open disagreements, which started from the first day Akinci took power. You must remember that Akinci called for brotherly relations between Turkey and the northern part of Cyprus, and Erdogan on live TV, said Akinci should hear what is coming out of his mouth. And it started with this discussion, with this disagreement, and it continued throughout Akinci's leadership. We saw that their relations got very tense during the Peace Spring operation. Relations got very tense over the model of solution in Cyprus, because Akinci was told to give up on the federal model, and he refused, and he said he would never do that. Akinci was the person who, went out and went to the Africa newspaper when it was being attacked. On the call of Erdogan, Erdogan had called on people to go and give a response to Africa newspaper when they published something that was not liked by Ankara. Akinci was the one who stood up for the Africa newspaper. I mean, there are many more examples. And I think all these things, for an autocratic leader who is used to having people around him who submits to whatever he says and who carries out his orders and who never, disagrees with him, Akinci was this man out there who is constantly causing problems and causing tension, So I think there was a lot of personal dislike and personal ambition behind this intervention.
And now Akinci has also announced that he's retiring from politics. Is there someone in the political spectrum that will replace him, that represents kind of his ideals in that sense?
It's very difficult. First of all, we have to say that Akinci, despite all of this intervention, despite all the promises of financial aid and all the pressure, Akinci got 48% of the votes, so it is a significant support from the people. Unfortunately, he decided he is retiring. In my personal opinion, he should have taken that 48% behind him and continued his fight. He decided not to do that. Do I see anyone active in politics today in the northern part of Cyprus who can take up his role? I don't, unfortunately. But I do see a lot of young people who have been very active in these elections and volunteered in Akinci's campaign and worked very hard, who are very educated, very cultured, very aware of what is going on in Cyprus, very concerned about what is going on in Cyprus, in the northern part of Cyprus. And I'm hoping that one day we will see those youngsters in politics. But right now, unfortunately, despite the presence of some left-wing parties, I don't see anyone who could take up Akinci's role.
Well, the Cypriot president, the Greek Cypriot president, actually, Anastasiades, has congratulated Tatar, and he's expressed hope that Tatar would support a new UN-led peace initiative to solve the Cyprus issue. Now, we know Akinci was for a federal solution, but we also know that Tatar is a supporter of separate administrations. So first of all, do you believe that the Greek Cypriot president's call is sincere? We also know that previous attempts have broken down. Do the Greek Cypriots want a federal solutions, or are they now kind of in line with Tatar's support for separate administrations as well?
Yeah, we have seen in the most recent negotiation process that Anastasiadis drifted away from a federal solution. So I think he was very sincere in congratulating Tatar. I think he is very relieved that he got rid of Akinci, because Akinci was the one who was constantly pushing for a federal solution, constantly not scared of making concessions, not scared of, taking that extra step to reach a solution, which always put Anastasiadis in a very difficult position. He had to be the one to reject all the time, all these openings. Now he doesn't have to worry about that. Now he has a Turkish Cypriot leader who is not interested in a federal solution, who is not going to force him to accept anything, who is not going to, force him to make any concessions. So I think it will be a very comfortable period for the Greek Cypriot leader. Will the negotiations start? This depends on actually Turkey's stance. We have seen other right-wing Turkish Cypriot leaders like Derviş Eroğlu, who was the leader before Akinci, who was completely against a federal solution, who was completely against unification and peace with the Greek Cypriots. But he was pressured by Turkey to sit at the table and even to sign certain agreements, some very important agreements with the Greek Cypriots. So if Turkey in the coming period decides that a federation is in their interest, and it is something they would like to, pursue, then no matter what Ersin Tatar thinks or believes in, he is going to sit at that table and negotiate a federation. Again, we have seen that Ersin Tatar is someone who will do whatever Ankara will tell him to do.
Yes, perhaps this kind of Turkey's interest might also be considering the developments also in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Cyprus card can come into play perhaps in that context as well?
Definitely. I think Cyprus, if it comes on the table, it will come as part of a bigger agenda. Eastern Mediterranean, the natural gas issue, or other, big power arrangements in the area. So yes, it is all about interests and the benefit. So if Turkey decides that it is to its benefit to maybe make some concessions in Cyprus and gain something bigger, then they will go for it. And Ersin Tatar will play ball.
Okay. Esra Aygın, thank you so much for having joined us.
I thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
The Good Party has been shaken by claims that its Istanbul provincial branch chair, Buğra Kavuncu, is a member of FETÖ, the organization led by Fethullah Gülen, and blamed for the 2016 July coup attempt. The allegations were made by Istanbul MP Ümit Özdağ. Denying these accusations, Kavuncu filed a criminal complaint against Özdağ. Political scientist Burak Bilgehan Özpek evaluated these developments to Medyascope.
This is an internal dispute affecting the whole of the political spectrum. Why did Ümit Özdağ make such a claim? Where is this reaction coming from? As we know, the Good Party is a breakaway party from the Nationalist Movement Party. When it was established, their ideological grounds rested in direct opposition to religious organizations such as FETÖ. They accepted members in line with this principle. This became their primary strategy, somewhat building a wall around them and making them unable to develop further policies. Indeed, we have seen that its members actively fight in the public eye against the FETÖ organization. This is especially important considering that Turkey's right-wing politics have in general had relations with religious organizations and cults one way or another. Their paths have indubitably crossed. That is why individuals not coming from a political background, but rather an academic or bureaucratic background, were accepted and held active roles in the Good Party. Ümit Özdağ was one of these figures. The Good Party has had a move towards central politics, without simply having a concern for national security. They are touching upon different issues pertaining to Turkey. As a matter of fact, recognizing this opening, in August, the People's Alliance made a call to Good Party leader Meral Akşener to join their alliance. Meral Akşener, no doubt, will want to continue this political journey with a new staff. So the previous staff, the one which gained legitimacy when the party was protecting itself from a possible FETÖ threat, will need to be discharged to some extent. So it is no surprise that these people are accusing the party members of FETÖ membership. This has been a common practice since July 2016, and many have managed their relationships through this framework. Now, the very people who protected the party from such claims are accusing it of it because of the possibility of their discharge. The party is changing. They are moving towards a new politics. In that sense, it is normal for them to change their members. Ümit Özdağ's statements were met with support on the government front, so the government is taking a position on the matter. This is giving the impression in the public eye that an operation is being conducted against the Good Party, suggesting that the government is meddling way too much in the opposition. I believe the Good Party will come out of this stronger. These internal disputes will not make it weaker.
As of October 22nd, Turkey's overall coronavirus patient count stands at 355,528, according to the Health Ministry's data. Meanwhile, the virus-linked death toll reached 9,584, with 71 new fatalities reported. According to the Health Ministry's announcement on October 14th, flu vaccinations will be restricted to people in risk groups. This restriction roots from both the public's increasing demand for flu vaccinations and from the pre-existing shortage of flu vaccinations across Turkey.
As the public health experts highly recommend getting influenza vaccination, the demand for vaccination has rapidly increased compared to previous years. According to the Turkish Pharmacist Association, there was already a shortage in flu vaccines last year, long before the spread of the coronavirus. In a statement that TEB made on October 13, the association noted that the uncertainty on the vaccine distribution was alarming. Increasing public concerns over the sufficiency of flu vaccinations received an official response from the Ministry of Health. As the Health Minister Fahrettin Koca pointed out that vaccine supply is a current global problem, he further mentioned that Turkey supplied 1.35 million doses of flu vaccines last year, and that this number could be more than 1.5 million this year. The Health Ministry's response was through implementing an online health checking system called ePulse. The people in the risk groups will be listed in the order of severity and then will be gradually vaccinated. Citizens of Turkey will be able to learn their risk conditions through the ePulse system. Any flu shot prescriptions other than the ones assigned from the ePulse system will be invalid. Furthermore, the price for the flu shot is determined to be 72.64 Turkish liras. Regarding the Health Ministry's state of preparedness against a possible situation of distress, President of the Turkish Pharmacist Association, Erdoğan Çolak, stated the following.
This will depend on the extent of distress. However, when we evaluate the quantitative data, this vaccination is not enough for Turkey, which already points out that there is a distress emerging. However, it is hard to estimate how this will arise as a problem or how it will be solved. What is obvious is that if there is only 2 million doses of vaccines in a place that needs 10 million doses, this will lead to a serious problem.
The Justice and Development Party's youth organization prepared a video where they asked citizens, "Who are you?" The video, which was shared on social media, received negative reactions as the hashtag "Sen kimsin? Who are you?" became a trending topic on Twitter.
The video included images of Musab ibn Umair, a companion of Prophet Muhammad, Ottoman Sultans Süleyman the Magnificent and Mehmed the Conqueror, former Prime Minister Adnan Menderes, poet Necip Fazıl Kısakürek, while also featuring animated swords, guns, mosques, the Turkish flag, and ending on the image of President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. As the negative reactions to the video grew, Twitter users reposted the video by referencing male violence and femicides in Turkey, people who lost their lives during the Gezi Park protests, and other disasters and tragedies as inflicted by the government, as well as environmental destructions. The response posted by the Women's Defense Twitter account read, "I am Nadira Kadirova, who suspiciously died in the house of AKP MP Shirin Ünal. I am Rabia Naz, whose murderer cannot be found. I am Yeldana Kaharman, Ayşe Paşalı, Emine Bulut, Özgecan Aslan, Şule Çet, Aleyna Çakır. I am all massacred women, and I am the one who will topple your rule." Another response posted by the Istanbul Solidarity for Ida Mountains said, I am the Ira Mountains, the brooks and highlands of the Black Sea, Kışlada, northern forests, Hasan Cave, Fatsa, which you have destroyed with your geoelectric power plants, hydroelectric power plants, and all types of monstrous projects. I am the tree, the bird, the insect, and air. In short, I am nature.
Yet another tweet read, I am Mehmet Ayvalıtaş, Abdullah Cömert, Ethem Sarısülük, Ali İsmail Korkmaz, Ahmet Atakan, Berkin Elvan, Burak Can Karamanoğlu, Mehmet İstif, Elif Çermik, who lost their lives in Gezi. I am 301 miners who lost their lives in Soma. I am the 103 lives lost in the Ankara train station.
That's all from This Week in Turkey. See you next Friday at 9 p.m. Good night.